Hey, this is William Tincup and Ryan Leary, and you are listening and watching Practitioner's Corner. Ryan, how you doing?
Never had a bad day in my life. How about you?
I think I've got evidence to the contrary, but that's okay. No
That's not,
worries.
that is not true. It's not true.
We have a wonderful guest on with us today. Richa, how are you doing?
Fantastic. Never been better. Thank you.
Now
Ah,
that is
see,
true. Fantastic, yes.
there you go. There you go.
But
Well,
I
we
kind of
do,
feel like she might have been better
eh,
before she joined the call. I don't know.
100%, 100%.
Hey,
So,
I'm just looking forward to the next hour. So let's
see,
go
there you
ahead.
go. So why don't we do some introductions? Richa, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. William and Ryan, so glad to be here on your podcast. Who am I? Oh, geez. I am a business leader with a major in HR and change management. I'm a mother of two teenage boys. Um, I'm a friend to
Bless you.
several people. And I'm just trying to be a wonderful human nowadays, just kind of
It's a
reflecting
struggle.
back to my
That is hard.
my core.
Struggle is real. How old are
Yep.
your boys?
Oh, so just turned 16 and just turned 19. So 16 and a 19-year-old.
Bleh.
So I'm close to you. I'm at 18 and 14. So
Oh, there
one's
you go.
just leaving for college here shortly, and one's going into ninth grade, freshman in high school. So
Very nice.
yes, boys are easy. Ryan
Hmm.
has three girls.
No, you know
I
what?
don't know
I
anything about that.
disagree with that. I disagree with that. I have three girls,
Really?
16, 13, and 10.
Yeah.
10. But the friends that I have that have boys, especially multiple of them, they suck. Like they're bad. Like every
Yeah.
time when we get together, I come home and I'm like, I love you three. You are amazing. Even
Stick
at
with
this
that.
age, they
Let's
fight, but
let's
these
check
boys,
with you in a couple. Let's check with you in a couple of years.
and they're
How old are
probably
Yeah.
you,
more
Ryan?
expensive. What's that?
How
Yeah.
old are you girls?
16, 13, and 10.
Got it. Got it.
So
Did
Yeah.
you say
Well,
they don't like
probably
each
more
other.
expensive? Did you say
Yeah,
probably more expensive?
no, they're definitely more expensive.
Yeah.
They don't love each other. Check. That's cool.
Yeah.
They probably don't want to see one of them still likes to be around me. The other two not so much. But when I see
Yeah.
these other families with the boys running around, doesn't matter. Mm-mm. I want nothing to do with it. Nothing. Mm-mm.
well, I think there's different challenges, Ryan. They really are. I mean, my boys are fantastic, but I have trouble with driving them, like self-drive to
Hmm.
actually care about themselves and, their
Mm-hmm.
life.
Brush their teeth, put on
Mhm.
deodorant, basic
Basic
stuff.
stuff.
Yeah,
Basic
yeah.
stuff.
No, it's
Yeah.
true. It's
Girls care
absolutely
about
true.
that. Girls care
Yeah,
about that.
boys, they could go. My boys, I won't speak for all boys, but my boys, Van will take a shower he'll take a shower every night. Like he would take a shower like 3 or 4 times a day if he could. Henry, man, if you left him alone, he would go weeks without taking a shower.
Well, he's a
And
Boy
so
Scout. He
Michael's,
can handle that.
oh yeah, but yeah. So, but Michael's really worried about it. I'm like, honey, he's joining the army. He's going into the Corps of Cadets
They're
at
gonna
A and
take care of
M.
him.
I'm
There,
not
he's
worried about him taking a shower because he'll
Mm-mm.
get hazed if he doesn't take a shower.
there
They
you
will
go.
put deodorant
It's
on
not our
him.
problem to manage.
That
They will
that's
take
right.
care
They will take care of it. I've outsourced that. I've stopped worrying about those things. Like, oh, is he going to eat zucchini? Not worried.
Their
They
Yeah.
get
problem.
20 minutes. They get 20 minutes to eat, and then they
Mm,
pull the plates. So whatever's on the plate, you're eating or you're not eating.
yeah.
So I'm not worried about him being a picky eater anymore. Like at one point, it might have been a concern. Like, he's a really picky eater. Nah, not a picker. Not a worry right now. 20 minutes. And actually, my brother told me in the Air Force they did that bit when he went through the Air Force that they say it's 20 minutes, and in 18 minutes they pull the plates.
So you learn to eat fast.
You
Like
earned it.
it and
You
eat
earned
it.
it. There's no talking.
Yeah.
Like you go into a mess hall, and it's just guys and
Eating.
gals they're getting it in because they've just worked out. They're getting it in. So I'm not worried about him putting on deodorant, taking showers, all that stuff that I've worried about for years, off the list. Don't have to
Makes
worry about it anymore. So really, we're talking about employees. I don't know if
Oh,
y'all know that we were working in a metaphor for employees,
what's the
and
metaphor?
well, employees you have to treat them differently. You can't treat them all the same. Like if your girls, well, again, like even with my two sons, they're different, and so
Hmm.
that's one of the things that HR famously has failed at, and is trying to treat everybody the exact same way, and you can't, especially with this generation. I think it's even more highlighted with this generation than previous generations. That there's a level of personalization that you have to, as an HR leader, you have to acknowledge. So,
And not to behave like parents with employees. I
right.
mean, there's
Oh, that's a good one.
something to be said about it's their life and their future and their development, right? So they need to own it. You can only enable that and hold up the
Hmm.
mirror and take them to the water, but they've got to drink the water themselves, right? So, you
That's a
know,
really good one.
treating them like adults is so key.
Right, right. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing now, and then we're gonna go backwards. So introduce yourself in insofar as kind of what you're doing these days.
Oh gosh, William, I am living my life these days, and I am taking a short career break. Um,
Mm-hmm.
how short, I don't know, or long.
Right,
I'll
right,
decide.
right.
I've been working for the last 28 years without a break, so this is my time to actually
Yes,
disconnect and reflect and really think about what do the next 10 years of my life and work become, and what is it that
right,
I want to do. So I feel really, I would say, privileged that I have this opportunity, right? And I can
right.
afford to just navigate and explore and learn. So it has been just wonderful last 3 months of being out of the day to day
Yeah.
from an operator's roles perspective, not chasing calendars, just, talking to people, exploring, learning, observing, taking care of myself.
I think that's every HR leader's dream. I
Yeah.
mean, if you get to a people officer, you get to a CHRO position, and again, the grind of it is real. Now, I mean, I'm not even dealing with COVID grind. I'm talking about just the regular grind of it being real, because it's never done. You're a firefighter. There's always a fire somewhere in the organization.
Yeah.
And so to then be able to say, pause, if I want to consult, if I want to advise, if I want to
Hmm.
just read books, do some other types of stuff, then I can do that. You've given yourself the opportunity to breathe
Well,
for a
and
moment.
it's such an emotionally connected role if you're doing it the right way. And I mean, yeah, I mean, so many people we talk to kind of in that same path, except they haven't taken the time. And
Yeah,
it's almost like I feel bad, like you need to take some time.
they
It's
they're
such an
tired.
emotionally, yeah, it's an emotionally connected role. Like it's like the presidency, like it ages you. You see them 4 years difference, and it's insane how these people age so crazy.
That was
Yeah,
a
no,
Biden dig. Nice.
that's
Good
it.
for you.
That's true. And I think it's very healthy. It is so healthy. I think all leaders need to do this, right? Whenever they can afford it, whenever their life can
Agreed.
allow for such a break, it's just healthy because you collect so much, like you said, and the jobs are difficult.
Yeah.
This is a very difficult time to be in the enterprise world, right? I mean,
Let
there's
me
just
let me ask this before we get moving. So you've been 3 months, you said so far. Okay,
that's
so
correct.
resting, all of that, got it. But how much of that time have you spent reflecting on what you've done in your career? Not necessarily what you want to do moving forward, but what have you reflected on?
Yeah.
And what have you thought about what you have done? Are you excited for what you have done? Are you happy with what you've accomplished? Or have you taken that step back and said, if I could do this again, I would do it this way?
I think, Ryan, life has been really kind to me. I come from nothing. I mean, when I was growing up, I had very little amenities around me. So things like, running water and electricity and flushable toilets, things that people take for
Hmm.
granted. I didn't have those things, right? So that's my beginning. And
Right.
I have really, truly climbed on so many shoulders right? People who lifted me up and supported me and, propped me up in a very healthy way. So if I had to just, based on my reflection, just cull it down to one thing, it is no man and woman is self-made. There are always so many people behind them. So that's my first reflection, just thinking about
Right.
everyone who has helped directly and indirectly throughout my career, in all that I have learned and grown to and have accomplished in life. So it has been humbling, right? Humbling is the word that comes to mind to say, oh my God, look how fantastic this journey has been. There's always things that I think I could have done differently, but then I wouldn't learn from them. So it's like
That's right.
my journey is
Mhm.
what my journey has been. I wouldn't change a thing about my childhood, because there are all the lessons that I've learned that make me who I am.
Some of that learning is learning what not to do. So some of the career progression is being around leaders and coworkers and whatnot, even employees, and learning what you don't like. There's a kind of a metaphor of dating, and kind of an argument for dating a lot of different people before you kind of settle down to find out what you like,
Mm.
but also what you're not willing
Right.
to to like, etc., or accept. So I think it's great. First of all, I love the reflection. I think it's good as a human being. I think it's just good to be, once a year. In your case, you're kind of doing a real concentrated reflection, but once a year, just to look back and go, okay, what did I do well? What did not do well? Like, where can I learn? What do I need to actually increase, decrease, all that type of stuff? I think it's just good for
Absolutely.
humans to do that. Usually, it's in the winter months. I
Hmm.
find that when things not necessarily slow down, but that's when I become more reflective
Yeah.
myself. I don't know, something about the weather that makes me reflect more.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Probably the clouds. But okay, so take us back to high school, college, just your younger self. What did you want to be?
Oh my God.
What was the dream?
I wanted to be so many different things. I wanted to be in an air hostess, as a little girl, right? Wanted to be on the planes
Ah,
all the time. I'd never seen a plane in my life,
right.
but I wanted to work on the planes. Um, but my biggest hurdle was language. I did not
Yeah,
know a single word of spoken English till I was about 18 or 20, right? So that career was just off the list. Then I wanted to become a doctor.
yeah.
But the kind of cultural societal background that I come from, I was always told, girls are not smart enough. Don't do STEM. Just stick to fine arts. Just sing and dance and paint, because it's not for you. You're not smart enough to do that.
Right.
So there goes that dream.
Would people
Then
really, I mean, sorry to interrupt, Richard. Would people really say you're not smart enough, or was
yeah,
it more
yeah.
nuanced?
No, it's like you don't get it. You don't get numbers. You're not going to be in science. Just
So it
don't demand
wasn't just the
credit for it.
expectation that as a woman you weren't going to amount to this, it was actually said to you.
Right. It was
Wow.
said to me. And then I was good at singing and dancing. So people are like, you can't do both. You just stick to what you're good at because we don't know about that other STEM thing. You might not get science. Your brother's doing it. That's fine. But
Right.
you're a girl and just keep doing what you're doing. So then my
Wow.
options were very limited. Somebody told me about psychology. That's you can become a psychologist, right? There are a lot of women therapists and psychologists, so you could be the one. So I pursued that was an option that was open to me. So I did my master's in psychology. I wanted to become a clinical psychologist, right?
Right.
That didn't work out either. I remember the program that I was a part of. You do, first in the first year of that master's program, you do clinical psychology, organizational psychology, and social psychology. And in the summer between the first year and the second year, they actually take you to the actual settings, right? So I was taken to a hospital where the doctor was treating mental health issues. And
Right.
I was 18 at that time, very insecure, underconfident. That profession is hard. It takes
Hmm.
someone who's so secure
Mhm.
in themselves and, can take all of that. So I said, okay, that's not for me. What is the next best thing I can do? So somebody told me, oh, this organizational psychology thing, that might be an entry into HR. I said, what's HR? So I went and learned about it and kind of fell into it. And here you go, 28, 30 years later.
Yeah. It's funny. Everyone always says, "Oh, I didn't grow up wanting to be in HR or in
Yep.
recruiting or whatever." I find most people come to HR recruiting as a last resort. It's like
Hmm.
I've got nothing else to do, and so they push them in. But so often there's stories like yours where people just they make such an impact on the profession, I've often wondered, is that correlated to the fact that you just didn't know about it, you didn't want to, but you're just caring, compassionate. You come from that background, right? You come from humble beginnings, and now you've brought that with you into a people business.
Yeah.
I'm just curious to get your thoughts there. Why do we see so many people who just fall into it make such a good
Yeah.
impact?
Um, I think, when I was growing up, there was no you go to school to become an HR professional, right? Like you
Right.
have an
Mhm.
engineering school and and a medical school and a law school, right? So that field in itself is not that defined, right? For a good reason, because HR leaders can come from any discipline, right?
Yeah.
You need to have the knowledge of the business, right? And how humans work, how businesses work, how different functions come together to create value for shareholders and employees and societies. But those people can come from anywhere. That's why I love the profession. It's almost like a melting pot, right? Because that variety of perspectives and backgrounds actually make this HR profession so rich, right? So there is again no HR school. You can get degrees and majors now, but 30 years ago it was more undefined. So I think that could be one of the reasons why people like me often have an undeclared career and they kind of
Mhm.
lead themselves into this. The second thing I would say is about me personally, the care. And the kind of the love and respect for humans, that's there. I think that's, any good leader needs to have that, right? You don't have to be an HR leader to have that, first of all. But I think what makes me unique in this field is not just that. I think HR leaders need to be so fearless. Yeah, they have to have different amount and level of courage. Given how my life has been, I've made two big transitions. I've, again, just built myself up from nothing. So that gives you the kind of intuition and gut and the courage to do what we do, right? So it's just, I think it's not just the caring and loving people. It is, can you be on the front lines, like you said, of leading humans in a business, which
Right.
is by far the most difficult C-level job in the C-suite. So yeah, I think those things, kind of my transitions in my life, prepared me to be and who I am right now.
Well, tell us about the first gig out of college. What was your if it wasn't in HR, what was your first foray into HR?
It was in HR. So I was interning with a company called Aisher Tractors. So my first job was in manufacturing. I have
Ooh,
seen tractors being rolled out of of the assembly line. So that was my first one. Again, just that was the first time I'd seen what HR in action actually looks like. So I was
oh, that's
responsible
safety,
for
that's compliance, that's all kinds of fun stuff
a lot of
in
safety, a lot of
manufacturing.
compliance. Yeah. And
Yeah.
a lot of training, right, of
Yeah.
employees. So that was my first project to make sure when we hire new recruits, how do you onboard them properly? How do you assess if they're ramping up in a good way, that they're ready for the real life out of college?
It's interesting. You would love this now if you ever got back into that. But Hogan Assessments has a an assessment. It's an assessment for safety. So it's a
Mm,
pre-hire assessment to see if you're kind of hardwired. Your personality is hardwired to be risky or not. And like if you're hiring a forklift driver or somebody on the assembly line,
How
you don't
risky
want
do you want
risk.
them?
You don't want risk. You want people that that have that again, managing your risk for your company. You want people that are kind of aligned with safety.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's a mindset,
again,
isn't
it is. It is. The
Yeah.
personality folks would have us believe it's all
it?
personality, but anyhow, manufacturing is a tough first. That's a tough first gig, actually.
Mhm.
That is a. I mean, first of all, you dropped off deep into the pool, and so Ryan, what would you? I know you had
Yeah.
a question.
Well,
Sorry.
so we hear a lot of nightmares around manufacturing and stories from HR people. I mean, I feel like we could write 3 books or at
Easily.
least do like 40 episodes just on the horror stories of manufacturing and HR, which might be pretty funny and pretty good. Give us one of your, no names or companies unless you want to implicate. Give us a fun story, a story that we would just be like, wow, you had to deal with that, and especially coming for your first jump into HR.
I'm trying to think of a fun story. It was so long ago. I don't have anything fresh
There's
in my
nothing
memory that
fun.
was fun.
You've
It
blocked all
was
that out. That's called
it
trauma,
was
Ryan.
We've
it was a
never
lot of
stumped
trauma.
anybody.
It was a lot of trauma. Now, true. I
Lot of
mean, I was,
trauma.
yeah.
The tractor took out the building, and
Oh,
No, none
it's
of
just
I unfortunately I don't have any of those stories.
it's in manufacturing, especially light manufacturing here in the United States. It's it's just the talent that you can hire at the wage rate
yeah,
that you can hire.
very different.
It's very different, usually fairly uneducated, and you've got to over-index in training. You got to over-index in communications and safety and compliance, and it's never done. Like that board or whatever of how many days since your last accident,
Yeah.
that's a very real thing. And so oftentimes I see people that come out of manufacturing from an HR perspective, it's like they've been in war. And then all of a
Hmm.
sudden they get a job in finance, HR in a financial services company. And it's like completely different.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, there's still safety,
Yeah.
but not like that. That
Not
is
like that.
like
Yeah.
really, really intense.
Well,
What'd you do after the? Okay, go ahead, finish your thought.
oh, I just wanted to give you one story. It's not funny, but it kind of gave me the glimpse into, how important cross-functional communication and operations is in manufacturing.
Hmm.
So one day I was on the site and I worked at the corporate office. So we used to go to the
Hmm.
on-site to the plant often. And there were like 10 workers, assembly line workers, just sitting there. I made my
Yeah.
rounds in the morning, they were sitting there. 4 hours later, they were sitting there. In the evening, they were just sitting there not working. So, I got tempted to ask them, what's going on here? And
What's
they
going on?
said, you know what? You see this unfinished piece of tractor, the parts that were supposed to arrive here 2 days ago
Waiting on a
haven't
part,
arrived, and we have
right?
no visibility into when they're going to arrive. So it's like, what do you do in the interim? Like, are there other things you could do? They said, no, we are specialized in this part, in this, putting this piece of tractor together. So unless that part arrives, we are just going to sit here and hang out. Right. So it's just, that supply chain, that communication, that collaboration, that operational kind
Yeah.
of efficiency is so important. So I hope they have figured it out 30 years later, but
You're still sitting
that
there.
they're probably
Yeah.
retired now.
They're still sitting there like, oh, it still hasn't come in. COVID hit, and we're
I
like
know that
20 years
exactly.
later. It happens. So what have you seen? So your career has grown obviously since that time. What's one of the most impactful or key things that you see that has changed in HR and the work that you're doing from when you started until now post COVID?
Yeah. When I started, I think, the kind of companies I worked in, very tactical. And I was also very
Hmm.
early in my career, right? So in India, I worked for companies where employee delight and satisfaction was so important, HR was expected to cut mangoes for employees because it was all about their engagement and productivity, right? So I've
Right?
done things like cutting mangoes for employees to increase their engagement in summer months,
Huh.
to what I do now, which is actually, being that true accelerant to the business, right? Because business is all
Yeah.
about people, up to 80%, maybe more of any company's OpEx is tied to people, right? So that becomes your biggest revenue producing asset, right? So from cutting mangoes to having this realization and finding tools to actually impact at that level, that has been the journey. And I think, HR has transformed in the last 30 years and has gotten more of a seat at the table and is being viewed as one of the core critical functions in the organization. So yeah, I've seen a big shift and I'm happy. I mean, you always meet CEOs, you always meet leaders who are like, yeah, HR is hiring and firing only, but there are
Yeah.
so many special leaders who truly believe in that partnership to say, how do we bring you together along with this journey and actually have you lead some of the aspects of the business from people and culture perspective so we can grow, we can scale as a
Yeah.
business.
You've opened up a really interesting chapter in the sense of CEOs, they get it, they get talent, they get the importance of HR, but they get the importance of what all HR touches. At this stage in your career, you can kind of suss those folks out, right? When you're interviewing, they either get it or they don't. Like,
Yeah.
I'm assuming at this stage you're not really willing to train a CEO on getting it, and getting to that place. So how do you know if they really, really, really care about both HR, but also the
Yeah.
end goal of candidates and employees and maybe an alumni?
Hmm. It's a great question, William. And yes, I have developed a compass, and I can see those people. I think there's one attribute, one quality that I look for in the CEOs that actually enables them to care for people and culture, to know how important that is, and then translate that into their partnership with the CHRO and the HR leaders. And that attribute is intellectual humility. They can be
Mm,
sharp as a
Mhm.
nail, but having that realization and acknowledgement of I don't know it all. Leading humans and people is tough, right? And having that humility in themselves to actually just get out of their own way, be vulnerable, ask questions, be curious, connect with humans at a different level, right? To understand who they are, how do they, why are they here in my company, right? And how are they helping
Mhm.
take us forward and actually learn from them? I think if, that attribute in itself just, makes a fantastic leader, but I think at the CEO level, even more important, harder, because once you're a CEO, I mean, you've accomplished so much. You have a wonderful resume. You have done things right to earn the right to be at that level. So intellectual humility is not the easiest to get to, but the brilliant, the most effective CEOs have that in abundance. So that's what I look for because it it,
So,
it just clears everything else.
and would you also say that that's maybe, probably, potentially the attribute that's missing from most of the conversations you have with CEOs?
I have met some fantastic ones, right? That actually have it, that get it, right? And
Mhm.
if there are the first time CEOs, they're still learning to get it, learning to see
Yeah.
mm,
themselves in that light.
Mhm.
The seasoned ones who have been around the block, right, who have succeeded and failed and learned from them, get it. They really do. And the unsuccessful ones are just not going to go anywhere,
Yeah.
anyways. And I,
And
you know,
that would be a determining factor, right, in taking a role at a company
exactly.
for a CHRO coming in.
That's 100% right. I think that's my filter number one of, who are you as a human?
Mhm.
How do you lead as a human? Do you care about people? I mean, it's not about there is a difference between being nice and being kind, right? So I don't expect myself and other leaders, including the CEO, to always be nice because as a leader, you've
Mhm.
got to do tough things. But are you
Yep.
kind? you can do tough things while being kind, right? So, that's what I look at. You know the business, you know the market, you know finances, understand the balance sheets, you understand strategy, you know how to handle the boards. Do you understand humans?
I think this is a great episode for people coming up to be able to suss out the people that they want to be around. Because life's short.
Yeah.
Your career's actually, it's short as well. Why be around people? Because you're not going to change them fundamentally. If they don't, if they don't care, you can't, no matter what, you can't get them to care.
Toxicity is no good.
Yeah.
100%.
It's just, in marketing, if you take a CMO role, you typically, one of the first things you ask of the CEO is the budget. Is so you get a pretty good idea of their understanding of what marketing is by the previous funding of marketing. So you start off by just having a discussion saying, okay, let's just take a look at the last 3 or 4 budgets. And if the budgets are, just tiny in comparison to what they need to be, then as a marketer, okay, you don't care about marketing. You might even have an idea of that what marketing is, which is, hubris, but you're not funding it. At the end of the day, you're not funding it, which means that you don't really know what marketers do. I think there's a parallel with HR. I think finding out the leader, that intellectual humility, which I don't think I've ever put those two words together, which is great, because that's a good learn for me as well. But there's also a budget tie-in. So after I figure out if that gal or guy is intellectual, has intellectual humility, I now want to know, have they funded HR?
Right.
Because HR and marketing run the same risk of being underfunded.
How do they support?
Crazy
Yeah.
expectations, funding down here. Okay, how am I going to get from A to B if I don't have the tools and resources to get there?
Couldn't
So
agree more.
how do you suss
Yeah.
that stuff out? I mean, now that once you found the CEO that has that intellectual humility, they might have that, but they might not have funded HR in a way that it needs to be funded.
Exactly. And I think the intellectual humility is at the core, right? To assess if you can even work with that person. And then
100%.
budgets and the partnership and who's gonna be on the front for what, right? Are we gonna be partners in this? You're gonna say, your CHRO handles everything related to culture, and I as a CEO can go say whatever I want to say. That doesn't work either, right? So after you
Right.
figure out if there are wonderful humans that you can partner with in accelerating the business and scaling, because again, humans make up most of a company's expense, and humans are the ones that make or break a business. So after you assess that, that's the core of it. And then there is, of course, the partnership, the budgets, the investments, the business is, it's accelerating, it's evolving constantly. Every year in a CEO's life is different in their business. So is CHROs, right? So getting that alignment on what does year 1 of my career and job look like with this company, year 2 and 3, because a lot changes, right? It's complex and fast evolving. So you've got to have kind of, a test for, can they see through beyond
Right.
year 1, right? So that's another thing that I assess for.
Really quick follow-up is, because HR sometimes reports through operations to the COO. Sometimes it reports through finance to the CFO. But you've talked kind of explicitly about having a partnership with the CEO. So give us some of your experience there, where you've seen HR report through other people to the CEO.
And does it work?
Might work in some situations, but if you ask me what I would do, I would never become a CHRO or a head of HR that is not reporting into a CEO. That role is so critical. That partnership, that direct connection is so, so critical. That's your test right there. Do you, as a CEO, find this role critical enough that you are willing to carve out time and make
This is
that as one
gold.
of your direct reports? The big red flag, red flag. If you
Yeah.
hear people say HR reports through finance or operations, unless you're
Well,
desperate for a job, run away.
what I love about this is you started off talking about your first job where you didn't have all the confidence, right? You just said, and you're literally on a sabbatical, taking a break, doing what you need to do, and determining what you're going to do next. And you just told the world, I don't care. I don't give a shit what you're doing. If you're not doing it this way, don't call me. That growth from the story you told us from the beginning until
Yeah.
now
Huge.
cements it in confidence for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, I think, to what you and William said earlier, I think through, as you reflect, it is a lot about what to do and what you learned to do best, but it is also about what you learned not to do, the kind of
Yeah.
people you don't want to
Mm-hmm.
be around, right? So the
Yeah.
clarity around that front, Ryan and William, is so liberating. It is so empowering because now you know there's little confusion about who you want to be around, what kind of CEOs you want to be partnering with, what kind of companies you want
Yeah.
to be a part of. So that clarity is just magical.
I'm kind of conflicted right now. Like, I want to keep talking to you for the whole day, but I'm happy. Like, I'm happy with how what you just said. I'm like, I can go on and have a wonderful rest of my week and not talk to anybody else.
Oh,
No, this
thank you,
is
Ryan. You just made my day.
it's
Yeah,
it's well, it's absolute gold
it
for
is.
for practitioners that listen to this that are probably struggling with this in one way or another.
The
They're
clarity, just the clarity.
these are the people. If you really want to get stuff, if you really want to do impact, you really want to do a great job. Here's a playbook. Here's the person that you have to have as a CEO, and you can't have someone else represent your interests.
Yeah.
You've got to have a direct relationship with them. If listeners don't if they don't get that, they probably shouldn't
Shouldn't listen.
be in HR. They're not going to be a great leader
No, no, no.
because they'll always have those roadblocks and to be blindsided by whatever, etc. So, Ryan, last question for me is I'm excited to see your next step. Do you have any type of timetable on when you'd like to, whatever you're going to do? If it's consulting, advising, like, is there any type of timetable that you're trying to adhere to?
Not right now. I want to explore all the possibilities in the world. I mean, there's so many seasoned CHROs out there who have taken a
Mhm.
pause and have redirected themselves in a very different way. They have gone on to become CEOs and the
Right,
COOs and started their consulting practices, started coaching, became advisors, became part of, the portfolio companies in a PE and gave to not just one company, 10, 20,
right.
30 companies, right? In a very
I would
different
hire
way.
you.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you, Ryan. Yeah, so I wanna explore all options very openly. But for now, I'm enjoying my summer. My older one is back from college. He and I have started to go to yoga practice together. So,
Well,
things like that, true blessings in life.
yeah,
Like, it's just I'm having fun. But again, keeping my eyes and ears open, meeting all kinds of wonderful people and learning from their life journeys and how they have led themselves through
yeah,
transitions and changes and big pivots and how to be nervous in the morning, but lead yourself throughout the day when you're inspired by somebody's story, right? And you're ready to make that leap. So I want to stay in this moment. And I met with a very sharp leader the other day, and I said, I'm in transition. And they said, you're not in transition, you are in a liminal state. And I had to go look up that word, and he explained to me it's where you have multiple paths ahead of you that you can explore. So once
that's
you
right.
get to a decision on what you want to do next, then you are in transition. So
That's
far
right.
you are in a liminal state, and Richa, please be in this state as long as you can and allow
That's right.
yourself this privilege because you deserve it after almost two,
Yeah,
dec-
you've
two
worked
decades
hard to
of
like,
get to it.
doing. Right, so
this is like
I'm
a
Oh, but
enjoying.
master class on how to interview for a job. right
Open
here.
open all the doors. Keep
Yeah,
all the things open. It is a master class, Ryan. You're
it
absolutely
really
right.
is. This is when that question. So whoever's listening now, when that whoever's interviewing you asks you the question, what did you do for the last year? You haven't been working. That is your answer,
That
right
is
there.
your answer.
Yeah.
That is the answer.
I'm,
And I'll give you one insight that I have collected about humans around me through this time is William, you touched on it, just winter months and just the act of
yeah,
gratitude and networking.
Mhm.
I have a ritual. I have an annual ritual of sitting down between Thanksgiving and New Year's and
yeah,
connecting with people who have given to me in meaningful ways, or people who have crossed paths with, people who might have forgotten me. And I ping them and I just check in with them to see, how are you? That one question, just thinking about you, checking in. I hope you're
yeah.
doing well. Let me know if there's anything I can do for you without
I
any
need to do a better job of
expectation
that.
that they will ever do something for me.
Yeah.
But in this time when I'm just out there, right, reaching out to so many hundreds of fantastic individuals who I have connected with in the past, and to see their response to say, Richa, when do you want to talk? Let's talk. I'm happy to make time for you. So much just generosity, right? So when you're in this
Mhm.
state or taking a break, transitioning, learning, don't do it yourself. There are so many fantastic people around you who will make time. Just don't think people are busy. They will reject you or
Yeah.
your offer. They all lean in, right? That's the part of the human community that we need to create where people can support and just connect without an agenda. And it has been proven so wrong and proven so right in the last 3 months that I have been in this liminal state and I have thoroughly enjoyed it.
So the annual thing that happens between Thanksgiving and New Year's, does that just, well, it's off topic, but I'm curious, does that have anything to do, because there's a major Indian holiday somewhere around there, and I was wondering if religion or some of the things that are cultural, does that have any impact? Is that just something that
Absolutely.
you've learned through?
No,
Okay.
not for that. I think I didn't. It happens around Thanksgiving, and I did not know what Thanksgiving was until I arrived in the U.S. But
We still don't know what it
I don't
is,
think
but yeah,
most people here know what
you're good.
Thanksgiving.
no,
They know
no,
it's turkey and you get off.
Turkey Day.
So
Yeah, so
yeah,
I'm a vegetarian, so there's no turkey. So what's left? It is the act of gratitude. So that's what I've hung on to.
Golly, this is
this
just
has been
like it's
fantastic.
just like the episode of like fullness. I love it.
This
Oh,
has been
thank you.
fantastic.
Love it.
Thank you so much for your time, Richa.
Of course. Thank you, William, and thank you, Ryan, for your time. It was lovely speaking to you today.
It was, and thanks
Pleasure.
for the audience. Ryan, do your thing.
Until next time.